No, I think they're overpaying for players. And I still don't think the majority of their first 11 gets anywhere near City's team. So, not really. No.
Well, they just signed a World Cup winner. I mean...
I've watched him. I did 3 of their games. I watched him live. He's decent. He's not 100 million. He's not 100 million. They've been absolutely bent over there. I mean,
But was Jack Grealish?
No, and that's the going. But he's a good midfielder. He's tenacious. He's young. He gets on the ball. He's brave. But he's not Rodri. He's not Casemiro. You know. So they're overspending on players. People are seeing them come, and they're just taking their pants down, basically.
Well, they certainly spent a fortune, Simon, have they not? I mean, the previous January the record spend was 430 million in 2018. This one, 815. Of that, Chelsea's share was 318 million. Yeah. They spent more in January than all of the Bundesliga, Serie A, Liga 1 and La Liga combined. Is it prudent spending? How do you describe their spending?
No. I mean, what is prudent is about the manner in which they're putting their players on their balance sheet with longer-term contracts, because in the short term, that enables them to spend twice the money that others do by signing people on 4-year contracts. Danny's point is right, but wrong, because it's not them that it's not them that are driving the market price. It's his release clauses.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
they're finding themselves caught, with the exception of Cucurella, which was a situation where they were bent over. And taken advantage of, and that is what all owners get when you first walk through the door. Everyone makes mistakes, and you learn from them. But in this situation, they're buying players on the basis of release clauses. So the market
you don't have to buy them.
Well, no, you don't. But if you've decided you want to buy that player, then you're not determining the outcome of how much you pay for him. You're just meeting the release clause.
Yeah, but then if you're looking, my personal view is that if you've got good recruitment, you can find a midfielder of that quality for a lot less, who hasn't got a release clause for 100 million.
Well, I mean, that's subjective, isn't it?
It is.
I mean,
the proof will be in the pudding.
There was an argument here, raging when Souness was here, about Casemiro being a steady Eddie. Yeah. Now, you're sitting across the table suggesting that... Well, no, I'm just telling you what Graeme says.
Yeah,
right? So it's subjective, isn't it?
That was a strange one.
Yeah, but the point is it's subjective. Now, you can turn around and say that we can trawl across the world to find a footballer that does a particular job at half the price. Okay, I'm assuming you've got a ready list of candidates that can fill that particular observation.
It's not my job to.
But the point is, if you're going to make those sort of observations, then you should be able to support it with a supporting set of information. But I think Chelsea are doing what Chelsea want to do, and the argument will be: is it prudent? Well, where does prudency come into spending 500, 600 million quid? Prudency isn't part of the word that football actually ever operates under anyway. It's all madness most of the time. And the bottom line is that Chelsea have tried to make sense of it by putting players on longer-term contracts that will give them the opportunity to spend £600 million and make it look like £300 million every year.
Right. So that sounds prudent to me. Danny, Chelsea fans laying into you even this early on in the show. There's James. Can almost taste the bitterness from Mr. Murphy this morning.
Bitter why?
There's Chris Humphreys. The tears from Danny. It's glorious.
There's no tears. Just whether they spend $1 billion or $500 million or none, I don't care. I just think they're overspending on players. You could go through the squad and look at a lot of the players and what they've spent, and I say you're overpaying for the quality you're getting. And is that squad... I mean, there's too many players for a start. That's going to be a problem for the manager we talked about the other week in terms of man managing. You know, keeping a lot of big egos in check is difficult for the best managers. You pick an 11 out of the Chelsea squad, it's not better than City.
And they're paying for potential, aren't they? Both in this case with Fernandez and with Mudryk to a certain extent. They're probably going to be very good players down the line. But the Premier League is an unforgiving beast. It's a massive step up from the Portuguese league. And for that kind of money, Chelsea fans will be expecting an immediate return. So straight away, there's a lot of pressure heaped on a young player.
He's a good player, but he's not a goal scorer or creative. So you won't see this, loads of mid-goals coming from midfield. He's not a Frank Lampard type. He more sits in there and dictates play. He's a decent player. They're not going to be disappointed watching him play. But if Mudryk's another, he could be a superstar somewhere down the line. But what you're talking about, if you're going to spend hundreds of millions, you want to win the league.
Well, they'll certainly give it the best shot from this point onwards, will they not? I mean, talk about expectation at Chelsea now.
I'm tended to agree with Danny. I look at the names they've signed on paper. I look at the squad now. It's still a bit disjointed to me. It's still bloated. I don't see them immediately closing that gap on the top four. I don't think they get Champions League football this season. So straight away next season, Graham Potter, I think, is under a huge amount of pressure to hit the ground running. And I also wonder, on behalf of the owners, I think Todd Bowley's a good man with good intentions, but how much of this purchase is ego-driven, not just by Todd Bowley, but by the recruitment team that he's assembled? They were not leaving Portugal without bringing back Enzo Fernandez. Sometimes you just have to walk away and say, actually, maybe this deal isn't quite working out for us?
But why do you worry? I mean, it's Todd Bowley's money. They've spent $2.5 billion buying a football club. And if they perceive, and they've got people in there that are grounded. I mean, Paul Winstanley comes in from Brighton that's not used to spending £100 million on
So he
transfers.
wants to prove himself by getting these big deals
he wants to
done.
prove himself, but don't forget the other side of the argument is if you go making signings for a chairman or an owner and you prove yourself and you make these mistakes, you're gonna bring your shelf life forward really quick.
Yeah.
So it's all well good running around waving your willy. It's another thing being able to deliver outcomes that are far more sustainable in the longer term. So you've got to think about the bigger picture rather than just a small term scenario where people are trying to prove themselves. I think there's method to Chelsea's madness. They're buying younger players. They've got an average player age of 20. Everybody buys potential. The tragedy in this marketplace now is potential's getting packaged up as end product. It's already there at 100 million quid. What next now? 200 million pound buys a player that's actually arrived rather than is still on his journey?
Yeah. There's one message, Danny, from Lewis, West Ham fan. Is that the end of Declan Rice to Chelsea then after all of this?
Probably.
Yeah.
But you don't know with the way Chelsea are going. I don't know because you've got to look in their midfield as well. Will they be looking to have wholesale changes? Kante, is he going to sign a new deal?
I think he will, yeah.
So that obviously would probably block Declan Rice. But the rumours always rise that it's Arsenal are more
Yeah.
interested than Chelsea.
Chelsea undoubtedly were the story of this window. Of that, honestly, it cannot be emphasised more that they came in and they did it. So a massive sense of expectation now amongst the Chelsea support as to what will happen now. Alex, I can't remember in all the years I've done it more suspense in that last 5 minutes last night. When we thought, Fernandez, is it going to get over the line? Is it not? Will it happen? Will it not? And with seconds to go, the text came in, and it was all important that we got it at that time. And it came from someone at the very top. We've got 1 more hour. We've got that hour extension. And that did it.
It was great deadline day drama, and because it was an overseas purchase, you had to get it done within the hour. For Premier League to Premier League transactions, you get 2 hours once you've submitted a deal sheet. I mean, it was brilliant entertainment. It was a brilliant transfer window. So many stories. One thing we haven't touched upon, and maybe we might in the next part of the show. I know Simon has already raised this with me privately. You look at the money that's been spent, over £800 million. Only 25 million going back into the EFL. 15 million pounds of that was what Leicester paid to Stoke for Harry Souttar. So basically, the bulk of the money that English clubs are spending is going into the pockets of overseas clubs. That's a concern.
That's a great point. So in this window alone, £815 million was spent. Chelsea spend £318 million. What do you expect from that, Chelsea fans? What's your best estimation as to where you'll finish now in the Premier League? 03717 223344 81089.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.